And now there are 4 after one of the great days of Olympic hockey ever. Welcome to Quick Takes, a product of the NHL Wraparound podcast. Vic and Neil with you. And I'm sorry this evening that I'm not a cardiologist, because I would have been getting a lot of business after the games of Wednesday.
Yeah, those were fantastic games. All of them were, and just shocking the way Finland was down to Switzerland. We'll talk about that. The way that Canada was down to Czechia. We'll talk about that. And the fact that the U.S. was never down to Sweden, but still just got by the skin of their teeth.
Both of us were 3-1 with our picks. However, I picked Germany in the early game against Slovakia, and you would pick Sweden against the U.S. So even though we were both 3-1, you win the day based on goal differential.
Yeah, it was a little bit closer than the Germans.
Just a little. So we're going to start with that USA-Sweden game that the Americans prevail on a goal by Quinn Hughes, 3:27 of overtime. This coming just after his brother Jack was stopped by Jacob Markstrom. But boy, what great drama in this game. We knew this was going to be close for the Americans. They were finally tested in these Olympics after really having 3 walkovers in the preliminary phase, and they were able to answer the bell.
They were, and they played a good disciplined game. You give them all the credit in the world. I thought both teams were great, and that's why it ended up in overtime. Luckily for the USA, Quinn Hughes was able to find the goal post that was able to deflect it into the net behind Markstrom, and the USA goes on to live another day.
Looked like Dylan Larkin's goal in the second period. It was a deflection of a Jack Hughes shot, and brother Quinn had made the pass for the one-timer. Larkin able to deflect it home, and it looked like it was going to hold up. And I thought the Americans did a really good job supporting the puck, getting in passing and shooting lanes for almost the entire third period. But then with the goalie pulled, Mika Zibanejad on a one-timer able to tie the score on a great pass from Lucas Raymond, who had a terrific tournament for the Swedes.
He did, and that's a set play, obviously. We've seen it so many times with the Rangers. Zibanejad likes to stay in that dot on the right side of the goaltender and take the one-timer. Obviously, they knew he would be there with the goaltender pulled. He was there, and he got everything and got it on the short side of Hellebuck. Put it by the short side, the blocker side. Just a tremendous shot by Zibanejad, and nothing that any goaltender would be able to do in that situation.
I thought for Hellebuck to have such a strong Olympics, and of course we remember the last 2 playoff years, and even though the Winnipeg Jets did win a round last year, Hellebuck clearly struggled on the road, but on the biggest stage here in these Milan Cortina Olympics, he has really done an outstanding job for the Americans, totally justifying being their number 1.
Absolutely, and great call by Mike Sullivan to keep going with him. And I can assure you, you'll see him again in this semifinal round.
So let's move on to our second semifinal, and we'll just share with you now that the Americans will play Slovakia in one of the semifinals. And the other one, Canada will play against Finland, and the Canadians with a 4-3 overtime win against Czechia. And before this game, Czech forward Marty Necas said, we let them, meaning the Canadians, win the first one because we knew we were not going to win 2 in a row against Canada. For a little while, it looked like he was going to be correct there, but classic Canadian heroics. And you think Mitch Marner can now go out in Toronto safely and be offered a drink somewhere after scoring the overtime winner?
I would think so. There's got to be a lot of Leaf fans with mixed emotions, though, and he's the one that pickpocketed his way right through the team and put that backhander in. Fantastic goal that he scored. And a guy who's a pass-first player all the time, and this was the one time that he decided to go in and take a shot himself, which was, as I said, a backhand shot, which eluded the goaltender, Dostal, who had played superbly throughout the game.
The heroics set themselves up this way. Late in the third period, game tied at 2. Tomas Hertl blocked the shot, Puck goes to Natchez, and he comes down and hits Andre Palat as the trailer. And he scores with 7:42 left to give the Czechs a 3-2 lead on a play where the Czechs had 6 guys on the ice, 6 guys in the celebration, was not called. And so it's up to the Canadians to provide some late heroics. And it's Nick Suzuki with a tip-in of a Devon Toews shot with 3:27 left. And you remember that Suzuki had hit the post on a wide open net earlier in the game with the score tied at 2.
And isn't it appropriate that the captain of the Canadiens is the one who scores the game-tying goal for the Canadians? And I thought Devon Toews has been playing great for Canada throughout this Olympics as well.
You know who else has been playing great? Once again, in goal, Jordan Binnington. Because after Suzuki's game-tying goal, he stops Natchez on a breakaway with 72 seconds left in regulation, and then stops Radim Šimek a minute into overtime just before Marner gets the winning goal.
He has been playing extremely well.
It's something that the awful regular season that Binnington is having, but boy, you put him on the big stage, and this guy is answering the call time after time after time. Did it in 2019 in the finals with the Blues, did it in the Four Nations face-off last year, doing it again this time around.
Tough to do it, though, with the St. Louis Blues, who I think are about a minus 25 goal differential and way out of the playoffs right now. So a little bit better team playing in front of them.
Big story coming out of this game. Sidney Crosby left in the second period. He took a series of hits, first by Andre Palat, then Radko Gudas, and then a combination of a hit that was laid on him with Gudas and Natchez. So no report after the game. I've heard a couple of things that it may not be as serious as it looked, but this appeared when he came off of the last of the 3 hits that it was something lower body.
It was obvious that it was his right leg. He went off limping with that leg, and then when he walked down the hallway, you could see that. And the announcers were talking about his right leg. Whatever it is, hopefully for Canada, it's something that's not too serious.
I thought there was something to be said about the way the Czechs played this game because, as I said yesterday, I was underwhelmed how they played in the game against Denmark the day before in the qualifier. But in this game, they pushed a lot of Canada's offense to the perimeters and did not allow them a lot of open ice where I think Canada's skill thrives. And I believe that this is something that the other 3 teams remaining in the tournament should be taking note of.
They played with a lot of energy. They were a totally different team than the day before. Czechia they played an excellent game. They just didn't have the depth of quality that Canada eventually showed they had in this game.
Part of the quality, Macklin Celebrini, who actually got an assist on the Marner game-winning goal, had a goal and another assist in this game. So a 3-point game. I have a hard time thinking that this guy will not be the San Jose Sharks captain next season.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure what his leadership qualities are, but I have a hard time thinking that this guy is not going to be a generational player for a very long time. He is a spectacular young 19-year-old player on Team Canada in the biggest stage in the world.
Not only is he comfortable, but he almost has a veteran presence out there, and this is as a teenager.
Absolutely. He's been spectacular. There's not enough superlatives that you can use about Macklin Celebrini and the way he has played for Team Canada. It was the right pickup by Doug Armstrong and his staff, and he's proven them right throughout the Olympics.
So the Canadians are going to play the Finns, who defeated Switzerland 3-2 in overtime. And this was a game that the Finns trailed. Late into the third period, there were goals 72 seconds apart late in the first period by Damian Riat and Nino Niederreiter for the Swiss. And they played that stubborn D almost the entire game. But then Sebastian Aho, with 6:06 left, got the Finns on the board, and you could almost see the Swiss starting to tense up a little bit. And then Miro Heiskanen scores on a deflection off Jonas Siegenthaler's stick with $1:12 left to force it into overtime. And then Arturi Lehkonen on a breakaway on a pass from Anton Lundell. And by the way, Esa Lundell got an assist on this as well. So LLL at 3:23 of overtime, and the Finns advance. But a heroic effort by the Swiss, but they just fall short.
Yeah, 2-0 almost the entire game. And boy, the Finns are lucky on this one. This was their second game of the tournament where I didn't think they played the way they can play. It was the first game which they lost, and now this game, but they came through in overtime, as you said, on that Lehkonen breakaway. But they better get their socks pulled up for the game against Canada.
They're going to have to play better. And again, this is a club that sometimes plays very flighty hockey. We saw it in the opening game loss to Slovakia. I think we saw it for the first half of the game today against the Swiss until they turned it on. But once again, they are able to prevail. And by the way, I'm not sure if this is Lehkonen's biggest goal, because if you remember, in 2021, in the semifinals, and this was coming out of COVID, Lehkonen scored in Game 6 against the Vegas Golden Knights to put the Canadiens in the final against the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Wow, yeah, so this might not have been his biggest one, but this was certainly huge.
Did you get up for the early game?
No.
Well, I did, because I had to feed the pets, let the dog out, the whole 9 yards. And this was the one game where the team that played in the qualifier on Tuesday actually looked tired. And I'm talking about the Germans falling 6-2 against Slovakia. The Slovaks had an 18-5 shot edge in the first period, and you almost thought that Germany was going to escape that opening period unscathed. But Pavel Regenda, that of the San Jose Sharks, scores with 1:55 left in the first period. And then the Slovaks score 2 goals 33 seconds apart in the second period. It was 4-1 after 2, and it was done from there. And you could just see the frustration and the body language all over the Germans in this one, led by their captain, Leon Draisaitl.
Yeah, it's a game where a lot of people thought that the Germans would beat the Slovaks, but no such luck. They handled them extremely well. And as you said, it might be because being tired from playing the day before, but we got to give the Slovaks credit. They really handed it to them.
Regenda got his second goal of the game at 58 seconds of the third. So any thoughts of a comeback by Germany were thwarted pretty quickly. Tomas Tatar had an empty net goal. Samuel Lava outplayed Philip Grubauer in this game. And I remember saying yesterday that this might be the one area that Germany had an advantage in, with Grubauer, obviously an NHL goaltender.
Well, you said yesterday that you thought that Germany had an advantage over Slovakia because they had more NHL players. And that's
no, the same number. Same number.
No, but
7 on each team.
Yeah, but you said you liked their NHL players better, or
That
whatever the case may be. I mean, you were very strong about Germany was going to win the game. So didn't turn out that way.
No, it didn't. So the semifinals set for Friday. Canada against Finland, 10:40 a.m. Eastern, followed by the USA and Slovakia at 3:10 p.m. Do you see a benefit to Canada and the U.S. both being pushed to the limit today, given the fact that they walked through their pool play? And this was the first time that they both had to battle through some adversity.
If I was a coach, I'd be happy that they faced that adversity today, both these teams, so that they could get themselves ready for even more that's going to come in the next round. And Canada's going to take on Finland, who, knows that they didn't play well in the last game. Slovakia's got to have some confidence now going against the U.S. after having beaten up on Germany and making it all this way. But I think the U.S. is going to have a little bit more steel up their back after coming so close to losing.
Do we get the dream final on Sunday?
Yes.
Okay.
Unless you're Finnish, then it's not a dream final.
That's true. Or Slovak, for that matter. If one of the two were to fall, who falls?
I don't think either of them.
Then you're locked in.
I'm locked in on Canada and the U.S., aren't you?
Yes.
Okay. There you go.
Should the U.S. win and Canada get beaten, then the U.S. goes for the gold medal against a Finnish team that they beat in Lake Placid for the gold 46 years ago.
Although not the same players.
No, not even close. However, if it is Canada in the U.S., that will be both on the men's and the women's side, because on Thursday, the women's final between the U.S. and Canada, and you had mentioned yesterday that the U.S. has won 7 straight in international play against the Canadians. They won that rivalry series back in the fall, sweeping the Canadians 4-0, outscoring them 24-7. They also beat the Canadians 5-0 in group play. They're running an unbelievable shutout streak, 5 consecutive shutouts, 331 minutes and 23 seconds. And I think on top of everything else, the fact that they've outscored their opposition 31-1, part of their great defense is the fact that they always have the puck. So nobody else gets to play with it anyway. So I think the U.S. wins this, and they have clearly eclipsed Canada, if they win, as the premier team in women's. And Switzerland and Sweden will play for the bronze, which for those two teams is probably their gold medal game. And that will be at 8:40 a.m., the women's final at 1:10. Our website is NHLWraparound.com, and NHL Wraparound will be our next show, when we will be joined by brothers James and Trevor Van Riemsdyk. So really looking forward to that discussion, and they will be our first active NHL players to join us on the show.
Luckily, I know the Van Riemsdyk parents, who are great people. This is going to be really a lot of fun to talk to James and Trevor and their long careers in the NHL and the competitiveness of the sibling rivalry, I'm sure, that they've gone through all their life, and also grew up as Ranger fans. And that'll be fun to talk about.
That's true. We'll talk to you next time on Wraparound.